Good evening. I'm Mayor Mark Northrup. This is the Hudsonville City Commission meeting, July 9th, 2024. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I do the roll call, just a couple things here. You're probably aware that we are lacking air conditioning tonight, not due to any malfeasance by the staff, but things sometimes break down, and it takes longer to get things fixed than we anticipated. So we would hope that brevity will rule the night, and we can be out of here in short order. The agenda is fairly concise and short. Before I call for the roll call, I just want to mention something, and it's a personal thanks to the commission here and to the city at large. If any of you have been following some of the local politics and some of the dissent and some of the ugliness that's out there in the media right now, it's a little bit hurtful sometimes. But at the city level and at the commission meeting, we strive always to hold ourselves to a different and high professional standard, as evidenced by that we do not use City Hall, our positions, or the dais for a political agenda or for any campaigning. And if any of us were on this dais to violate that, we would hold each other accountable. And we have, because sometimes we do make mistakes. It's not personal. It's just that we hold ourselves to a very high standard. And I want to let all of you know how much I appreciate that level of professionalism that you hold, and you hold to yourself and the community and to all of us at large. Having said that, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Commissioner Bullheis?
Here.
Brinson?
Here.
DeVray?
Here.
Grote?
Here.
Camp?
Here.
Nitre?
Here.
Mayor Northrup?
Aye. Now is a moment of silence. I am going to seize the moment. I was thinking about this, that how fortunate we are to live in a country that has air conditioning, potable water, good hygienic sewage systems. And we live it every day and we take it for granted until we don't have it. And maybe tonight's not a bad case where we get to understand what it's like for the vast majority of the people in the world to live without good air conditioning, heat, potable water, and sewer. So let's just thank our lucky stars we get to be Americans in West Michigan. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Now is the time for public comments. If you're not on the agenda and choose to speak to the dais, please come forward and speak. Hearing nor seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda items. There are 4 City Commission regular session minutes dated June 11th, special session June 25th, Election Commission meeting minutes dated June 17th, and the Planning Commission regular session dated June 19th. Are there any changes to those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Consent agenda items carry. Now moving on to new business, public safety. Fire Department.
Filling in for Steve tonight. He's at a Southeast Fire Officers meeting over at Terrace Square tonight. So, real quickly, we had 68 calls of service this past month. One of note, we had a pretty serious carbon monoxide leak in a local business. Ended up having neighbors, Georgetown, come out, and it took us about 3 hours to ventilate the facility, and learned very quickly the necessity for a very good operating four-gas monitor that we didn't have previously. It is in the budget for this year. However, thanks to City Commissioner Tyler and Andrew, we were able to do some things with the budget and get a new one now that was put in service last night. So I want to thank everybody here for supporting us throughout the rest of the year and this past year. So, any questions?
Did the business have a carbon monoxide detector?
They had a malfunctioning water heater long story short, it was working all weekend without anybody there. Business opened at Monday morning to the smell. They thought it was natural gas, but it was extreme extremely high levels of carbon monoxide.
Is there any requirement for carbon monoxide detections
Any requirement as far as
for businesses to have a carbon monoxide sensor?
highly recommended, but it's not required.
They'll probably have one now. Huh?
Probably.
Any questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief. Thanks for covering tonight.
Thank you.
Sergeant?
Good evening, everybody. June was a good month, 242 calls, 119 stops. With the stops, we also post all of our stops with all of our deputies as well. And 2 of our guys were the top 10 for the entire county. So pretty proud of those guys. They did a great job this last month. So 2 to be in the top 10 for the county is good. Some other things, I got to teach drivers at 60 kids. Talk about distracted driving, drunk driving, had a little fun with them. Showed them some really gruesome pictures to try to alleviate them from speeding and crashing. So it was good. I get to do it again next week as well. So by the end of it, I'll have 120 kids that I get to talk to. So it's always a good thing. Crashes were low this month, or the month of June. So it's fantastic. None of them were in the restricted area. So it's a positive. And that's all I have.
Any questions for the sergeant? I think we know that the road diet on 32nd has had a profound impact and saved a lot of injuries and traffic accidents. And I thank you for sticking by us through that decision-making process, Jeff.
Yeah, now we just got to work on the other sections.
And we will.
Speeds. Thank you.
Very well. Clerk, is the mic on up there? I can barely hear.
It is.
Huh? Can you hear? Can't hear a thing? Maybe, once you hold it up, see, maybe you can. It is on. Okay. Might want to hold a little closer.
All right. Anyway, I will
Still isn't working. Oh, well.
keep this quick. So, the Balloon Festival, I want to make a note on there that even though we didn't do a whole lot of traffic direction for the Balloon Festival, because of the weather and everything, we thought, well, we should be out there again next year. We'll do it a couple of years and just see what the pattern actually is before we decide to make any significant changes there. But if this year was an indication, then we may eventually phase out of that and let it manage itself. And then an update on the last item, staffing. The person I'm referring to there, we have actually made an offer to him, and he has accepted. So I'm working with Andrea on getting a start date for him. So he will be prominent in our next month's report as a new hire.
Good.
Any questions?
Any questions for Dave? A couple things, Dave. During the concerts, your team did a remarkable job controlling the traffic and the parking, and that's a key component to the safety of the city. And there are those of us that notice those kind of things. It's not noticed by others because it's transparent, but it really makes a difference for the quality of those events.
Thank you. I'll pass that along to the team.
And also, are we all set for the August fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a really good traffic plan for the fair, and what we do in the month leading up to the fair, we meet with Chief Essenberg to talk through an emergency plan, what happens if there's a fire. So he lets us know which way trucks are going to come in, where they're going to drop hoses, all that sort of stuff. So we'll have a robust plan again as we have in the past.
Good. I recall the last couple of years we had a list of lessons learned. I just assume you're going back and looking at those.
Oh yeah, every year. We debrief after the fair, and the next meeting we have after the fair, we actually go in depth, and all that gets baked into my records, so it all comes into the next year's plan. And those lessons learned are getting smaller.
That's good. Anything for Dave? Thanks, Dave. Now moving on to the city treasurer's monthly report for June. Andrew, you are up.
Okay, preliminary numbers are in for the end of the year. Revenues were above budget and expenditures were below, so that's good. We'll hopefully that holds after we post everything, but it's looking good. Let's see here. I sent out a note to the finance committee, but I'll share it with everybody. This last fiscal year, we earned $491,825.94 in interest. So that's extra money for the city to spend on other things that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So that's, good for the city all around. And let's see, anything else of note? I think that's all I had for this month. It was pretty, we're getting ready for tax season, started July 1st, so yeah, going on with that. And I'll probably next month have a report for you like I did for the mid-year, once we have all the figures in, but we'll have a more detailed breakdown of the year in review.
Any questions for Andrew, for commissioners? Hearing none, we'll go on to item number 7, payment of the bills. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to confirm the payment of the bills in the amount of $385,399.95 and to confirm payment of bills paid between meetings and reviewed by the Finance Committee.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on payment of the bills? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Branson?
Yes.
DeVray?
Yes.
Bullheis?
Yes.
Grote?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Nitre?
Yes.
Mayor Northrup?
Yes, moving on to item number 8, ACH funds distribution. Is there a
I
motion?
make a motion to confirm the funds distributed via automated clearinghouse in the amount of $1,461,322.48, which were distributed between meetings and reviewed by the city manager.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Branson?
Yes.
DeVray?
Yes.
Bullheis?
Yes.
Grote?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Nitre?
Yes.
Mayor Northrup?
Yes. ACH funds distribution has been approved. Moving on to item number 9. Before we go and ask for a motion, I will ask Mayor Pro Tem to amend the agenda as appropriate.
I'd like to make a motion to make agenda item 9 a discussion point instead of an item that we make a motion on. Is that appropriate?
Yes. Is there a second?
Yeah, there's a second. Yep.
It's been moved and supported. Can we do
I think we're tabling it.
we're tabling it. Can we just do a voice vote on this one? All those in favor of amending item number 9 to openly be a discussion and not a motion for approval? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 9, which is a discussion at this point. I think I'm going to turn this over to Patrick. Welcome from the county here. And we're glad to see you. And you can loosen the tie, sir.
Do you want this one instead?
You want to? Let's try it. Yeah.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
By the way, we're having the AV in here upgraded shortly. That is on our list.
Well, it does happen, so I totally understand what's going on. And I do have no problem with the delay in the action. We went from a slow process to a very quick process, and so we have some time. What I'd like to do tonight is to at least talk about the project a little bit, how we got here. I don't plan on going into detail on the bond documents, because we're going to have a work session and we can get into those bond details, but I am prepared to answer any questions that you may have tonight. So if I could just really quickly go over some background. And this goes really back to 2001 when the plant was last expanded and we looked at the transmission main capacity, and it was determined that we could not pump 120 million gallons per day, which is the current capacity that we could treat at the plant. And so they first were planning on a booster station along 96th Avenue. So Wyoming actually bought property along 96th Avenue between the current mains on New Holland and Ransom Street. Then we kind of put the plan on the shelf while demands increased, and as it so happened, it took a little bit longer than the engineers anticipated. So by 2016-15, we said we need to get ready for that booster station project. Well, at that time, we were really concerned with some of the impacts to the wholesale customers. Pressures were going to change quite dramatically, so we asked them to look at that analysis again and consider a third transmission main. And so they did it, and we looked at, in addition to just the cost of the different options, we also looked at the energy demand for the different options and the reliability of those different options. And after we took a fresh look at that and considered everything, we found out that the third transmission main was really the better option. Number one, it allows us to do it in phases. The other thing, it does increase our reliability. And lo and behold, as soon as we made that decision, we started having problems. So the existing Ransom Street transmission main has had 3 breaks already. The New Holland Street transmission main broke in front of the treatment plant in 2000. So I came to you back in 2021 so that we could repair that project in front of the plant. So now we are here today. We've had a few other delays in that. Originally, we were going to go down Berry Street. We did a corridor study in 2017, and we started getting property and doing design. And unfortunately, that particular corridor had some pretty big impacts to a few properties. And so we looked at the scope, and we decided to go down the Van Buren corridor, and that's where we're currently planning to go. It added about a mile's worth of pipeline, and we went from a 54-inch to a 60-inch main. So that did result in some of the cost increases. And so we took a break because prices were going up, and we attempted to get low-interest loans. We went to the federal funding through WIFIA. That wasn't a good deal, so we went to the state revolving fund. And unfortunately, we did not meet the fundable range. And so we decided to move forward with a traditional bond issue, and that's why I'm here today. Wyoming is planning to sell bonds for their share of it, and then Ottawa County would put our part forward. So if I could just briefly again get into the memo. I'm not going to get into all the bonding, but I do have this memo which kind of goes over some more background on the water system. This is about 64,000 feet of 60-inch pipe, and we have a number of large valves. The project total cost is $85.4 million, and the county share is $37.6. I do have a map on that last page that shows the route. So this will be the first phase that'll go to 98th Avenue. And you see that member that goes north and south, that will connect all 3 transmission mains. And what that will do is provide greater reliability to the whole system. So if we have any more breaks close to the plant, we'll have other ways to route that water. This first phase gets us from a capacity that we can actually distribute of 104 million gallons per day. That's where we're at right now of what we can pump. This will get us to 115 MGD. So it's not back up to the full treatment plant capacity, but as we get those further phases on, then we could distribute the full 120 million gallons per day. So that was a really high-level discussion of the project. I'm happy to answer any more questions about the project in general, and maybe I'll just stop there and see what you may have to say.
I do have a question, and I had a discussion with Andrew and Tyler this afternoon, and it doesn't pertain to something that has to be determined this evening. But as I look at the document, I realize charges are based on use, but there is an allocation percentages in there that haven't been updated for some time. Sure. My concern is if something kicked or something unforeseen happened and we had to rely on those percentages, they aren't very in line with current usage or very agreeable for the city of Hudsonville. So sure. I would surely like us to be able to look at those percentages at some time.
Sure. If I could just briefly respond to that. So the percentages I left the same based on the last time we apportioned the capacity of 120 million gallons per day. So that's why I kept them the same. They were based on projections back in the day, so they don't equal what we have right now. Now, how we fund this is through the user rate. So we pay for what you use. So the percentages are really just give us the ability to issue the general obligation bonds. So we need to come up with a percentage. So I am open to taking a look at those percentages, and we can look at adjustments to those. But in the end, it's not very impactful to the city as a whole. There is a small possibility that we could use those allocations to apportion some costs, so it's not zero. And so I do understand your question, and I'm open for more discussion.
Yeah, and I would just encourage us to do so. I agree that it may be a small percentage, but there could be other scenarios that would kick in.
Sure.
And again, those percentages are based on years ago, and there's been a fair amount of growth in other areas, particularly Jamestown, that don't show their fair percentage. So I would surely hope that we could look at those.
Yes.
So if that occurs where the percentages are falling back on that, we don't pay a disproportionate amount.
Yes, I have no problem opening those up, and if you want to get into the details of the resolution, there are a few items in there that says if necessary. So if any of the local units percentage goes above 10%, then that's when the continuing disclosure requirements kick in and some of these other items. So they do have some bearing, and so your point is well made, and so we have some time to look at those. So I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
So what you're saying is our portion may in fact be 4% instead of 5%.
It could. What I'll look at is the current usage, but then this is also a facility that's going to be in use for 75 to 100 years. And so that's why we typically look at a projected use, and then that's what we base the allocations on. But to Commissioner's point, Council member's point, that hasn't been updated for this purpose in some time. So it's a great question, and I'm willing to look at it, and we have some time to discuss
Right.
it.
Any other questions for Patrick? Dave?
Yeah, I was just curious if you could talk about how the 43% ownership for the county is determined.
Sure.
Obviously, there's other water getting used further and further out towards Grand Rapids as
Yes.
those townships grow over there too.
Right. So we have a wholesale agreement with the city of Wyoming, and that agreement allows us to use all the water that we really want. It's not based on our percent ownership. However, we're required to participate financially based on that ownership. So there is a little bit of a disconnect between what we pay for and what we can use. And the contract currently has some tools on how we manage that. But those tools are no longer effective. So I've been negotiating an update to the Wyoming contract for probably it's about 7 years, but for the last year we've been meeting monthly, if not more, to try to get that contract updated so that we were hoping to line these projects up at the same time, but we're not quite there. We've made a lot of progress, but we are trying to update a lot of issues that have come up over the years. One is, how much does Hudsonville actually have? Is it this percentage in the bond contract? Do we have 5 MGD at the plant? It's really not well defined in the current contract, but I want to assure everybody here that Wyoming and Ottawa County are here to provide a regional water system, and we're not here to provide winners or losers. This is a regional system to provide safe and abundant water for all users, and that's our goal and our mission. So we want to come up with a system and a contract that is fair, that meets the needs of a community like Hudsonville that doesn't have the growth patterns like other growing communities. And so we do have work to do. We're not done with that work, but I'm hopeful that I'll be coming to you shortly with an updated contract that addresses a lot of those.
Just one quick follow-up on that. So how do you determine community, obviously like a Gaines Township or a Byron Township came
Yes.
on later to the game, right? How does that chosen? So as we have water shortage issues around being able to serve communities as they come on, how does that not get disproportionately affect communities like ours that have been established for quite some time?
The growth is what would be impacted, and so if at some point in time we are not able to distribute any more water, we're limited to 104 MGD right now. everybody would be impacted uniformly, but the growth would be what would be impacted the most. So if we couldn't keep up with our pace of putting new facilities online, then Eagle, our regulator, have a few tools in their toolbox, and one of those could be to put a moratorium on new extensions of water or water mains, and then if it really got bad where we didn't have enough use, they could say no more connections. And so that's to the far extreme of what would happen if we didn't keep up with our growth and so forth. But as far as how we handle it in the contract, we would distribute it as equally as we can. You're in a good position because the water, quite frankly, is easier to get to Hudsonville than it is to Byron and Gaines because there's a lot more infrastructure between here and there.
That's really helpful. The only clarification that just wondering, obviously needing to add additional mains has come because we've used more capacity. Are we as a city obligated if you folks want to go beyond that 104, 120 to pay for that infrastructure?
Well, this is a difficult struggle for the growing, non-growing communities. We're all in it together. We're in a regional system, and so the system that we've bought into with Wyoming goes all the way to the Gazan tanks in Wyoming. So our obligation is to complete that whole transmission system up to Gazan. So there are phases where it's out of Ottawa County, actually, into Kent County. That's part of that system. And so in some cases that the growth is coming from outside. Other times it's building redundancy and reliability because the Ransom Street main is getting near failure. So there's a lot of factors that impact the cost of infrastructure over time. But what I can tell you is that if Hudsonville was on its own and drinking from groundwater and having to do it all on your own, it would be way more expensive. If each of us were all on our own, we would be having troubles. So I know these costs are going up, but it is better to be part of a regional system. We have had small systems in the county, and whenever we've been able to hook up to the regional system, it results in lower costs. And that's just after 31 years of experience.
Just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, that we are obligated to grow as however Wyoming and Ottawa chooses to grow.
Your percentage is going to go down if the others go up. So you're only going to pledge your full faith and credit based on your use. It's based on usage. So if you look over time, Hudsonville is one of the non-growing communities, and so your share of the pie would go down. However, all rates are going up over time. And so that's the other part of the equation, is that even though you're a smaller piece of the pie, the overall rate is going up. Now, some of that can be an impact of growth. Some of it can be an impact of
cost.
Of cost. Some of it can just be replacement and no longer being effective. So there's a number of factors. These are all excellent questions, and I hope I've kind of hit on some of the points.
That's not easy to understand, so I appreciate you helping me think it through. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we can't discredit, too, that Hudsonville has grown since these rates were established, but we've probably disproportionately grown to other neighboring communities. So I agree with Commissioner Branson that it'd be good to take a look at the allocations again, but correct me if I'm wrong, the percentages are just to try to divvy up the allocations, but ultimately it gets paid for based on usage.
Correct. It's a single rate, and that's how we currently recover the money needed to pay the bonds. These percentages, while they're important, and I do need to take a fresh look at them, they are not how the bonds are going to be paid for in the rate. So it is that rate, and as I've projected, it's going to go up by about 43 cents is the projection of the wholesale rate impact. So it's not insignificant. It is going to be an increase, but I can tell you that the need is there, and we need it for reliability and redundancy. The other thing that we're looking at, though, is I said it took us, we earned some time keeping that plan on the shelf because our our water use projections were less over time because of conservation. A lot of that had to do with plumbing codes and so forth. Well, some of that low-hanging fruit has already been gathered, if you will, and to really go the next phase, we have to talk more about water conservation. And so that is something that I'm talking about with Wyoming. That's how we avoid paying more and more and more, is that we're not putting these pipelines in for the flow during the winter time. It's for this time of the year when everybody decides to sprinkle their lawns at 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's the truth of it. So if we can get control of how we use our water, we can, again, manage the cost and be a better steward of our resources.
And to that point, Pat, if everyone remembers a couple of years ago, early summer, there was a sprinkling ban, aka Wyoming told us you can't sprinkle your lawn because we're trying to fix a break on one of the transmission mains. And that's because normally they can push the water they need through the two mains, but when they had a break in one and had to take a couple weeks to fix it, they could only have the one transmission main, and they can't just throttle down and push all the water through it, because then if that main breaks, then no one has water. So I think from my perspective, the redundancy and the reliability will be huge for the system, because do you know off the top of your head what year that first main went in?
And well, the second phase, it was 1992 because I started in 91, and the Wyoming phase 2 of that went in, but it was like in the 70s for the first one.
Yeah, so with the first main being, we're pushing 55, 60 years old, the pipes don't last for forever, and to have a third, I think, is going to be huge for the system as a whole.
If I could too, this reminded me there is one other $9 million project that we added to the list. Is we added surge tanks, and I just want to briefly tell you what those are. Since we've been cracking mains, big mains, they did a surge analysis on a hydraulic analysis of the pipelines, and what can happen is because of how much water and the weight of that water in the pipeline, if there's a sudden stop, all that water can come back, and you can have vacuum conditions or high pressures, and they think that's partly of what was causing some of the breaks. And so the original design was right on the fringe of needing them, and now we're putting them in as an additional insurance policy so we don't break any more mains.
Anything else for Patrick? Just a couple of things, Patrick. I want to make sure you understand we're not suggesting we're thinking of going on our own.
Oh, no, and I didn't mean that.
And we're not advocates or supporting improving the system.
Sure.
We just look to you to be an advocate for fairness in those capital improvements, and that's kind of where we're at. Being a small city, we want to make sure that what is really our fair share. The other thing that concerns me a little bit is the bonding. Now, is that bonding all the county, or do we bond ourselves?
No, we are bonding. It is bonding through Ottawa
Through the county. And the county's bond rating is what now?
We're still AAA. And
Still AAA.
Yep. We just did a bond issue last year with, I can't remember, they're all blurring, but we just had one, and we were fine. So
we don't anticipate losing our bond rating, and we're going to be okay with getting competitive bond interest.
No, I don't really have any concern with that. The bond rating is really primarily our financial strength, and Ottawa County is still in a very good position financially with a lot of the demographics that we have here. So that's all I'll say. In the bond rating, I don't see any issue with that.
Because there has been some concern in the county recently about our bond rating, as you well know.
It's not bulletproof. I'm not suggesting that it is, but I just want to let you know that politics is only a small component of what goes into the bond rating. It's bulk of it is the economics, demographics, and all of those. So you can't mismanage and drive all those other factors down. It would have an impact on the bond rating.
So we're not Flint. Anything else for Patrick? Patrick, we're going to have a work session in 2 weeks. I think the city manager, Tyler, is going to be talking to you some more about some of these details.
Yeah.
Because we need to flesh them out a little bit more for the commission, and we fully anticipate to vote a motion at the August meeting.
Well, you're the first one, and so I really do appreciate you putting me on the agenda so quickly, because by the time I got the documents, it was right before the holiday.
Yeah, we understand.
So I really do appreciate you putting me on the agenda and letting me come before you and explain this. So I look forward to more discussion.
Anything else for Patrick? Hearing none, thank you, Patrick.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to item number 10, zoning ordinance text amendment. Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt ordinance 24-334, amending the City of Hudsonville zoning ordinance with respect to childcare being permitted use in the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Areas Zone District.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and supported. This has been discussed at length in the planning. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
I'd like to abstain from the discussion and the voting as I work for an organization that's listed in the proposal.
Thank you. Note that, clerk. Thank you. This item has been discussed at length in the Planning Commission. Jeremy, I don't know if you want to talk to that briefly or not, being a representative of the Planning Commission, or?
Yeah, I mean, we have had discussions at length. I think everyone's probably somewhat aware of what the thought is there. And we had some good discussion at the last Planning Commission meeting. There were some concerns about this potentially opening the door for other issues in the future, but ultimately I think those concerns were negated at the end, and I think this is a good thing for the city moving forward.
So this is just applies to the nature center only, correct?
Thank you.
Tyler?
It results to the property that's listed as parks in the zoning ordinance. But looking at this adjustment here, the nature center is part of that. But due to size limitations and restrictions, we're very much limited in those areas of where a facility like this could call home based on state regulations. So it's nature center, but it would be our park system.
So it would be pretty hard to
Yes.
open a daycare and system in another park.
It would be, well, in a park or any of the other zoned areas within the district, yes. And that's something that staff looked at. Think about it, trying to put a Meijer on a residential property. Yeah, doesn't fit, it can't happen. So there's very few areas where this is allowed.
Any questions? Sarah, I know you're thinking about talking. Why don't you? Go ahead.
So for what we're looking to do here with the child care center being permitted in the rec zone district is it would be permitted in all rec zoned parcels. You can see on the map from the packet. There are a few properties that are not owned by the city that are zoned rec, like the properties in the downtown that are zoned future for the Village Green. But just due to size, even if those were combined, it wouldn't be large enough based on the state requirements for childcare with, square footage per child, parking requirements. There's a whole manual from the state that has all of these limitations to it. It just wouldn't be feasible there. Nothing would really be able to fit. The same for the couple other properties off of Corporate that's zoned that way for the entrance into the mountain bike trail that Jamestown is working on. Again, too small for really anything to work. There's a piece off of Highland that has a retaining pond that is kind of in the nature center. Again, slope doesn't work. They'd have to move that retention somewhere else. And then otherwise, everything is zoned appropriately. And Port Sheldon Sports Complex is really the one that would be a potential if they ever did decide to remove the soccer fields and the ball diamonds there, because that is a separate parcel. from the actual county court, there is a potential and a possibility for that to fit a childcare use, but that would still have to go through the site plan approval process, buffering, making sure that everything meets our zoning standards on that. So that's really the only property there that we're at risk of having put in childcare that is zoned rec, besides our intent for the nature center.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I have one question. If an applicant is given permission to operate in this manner on that property, does it carry with the applicant or does it carry with the property? So if the applicant ceases business, does the permissible use carry with the property?
Yes, so if we put this through into the zoning ordinance, it is permitted just in that zone district. So it carries with the property if it retains its rec zoning. So there is something too that we did discuss at Planning Commission that isn't reflected in here. We are obviously, as you know, going through the master plan and zoning ordinance changes with McKenna, our consultant, and there is an opportunity to, when we go through that process, have the nature center zoned separately and create its own use district. And at that time, this could be adjusted accordingly to fit just the nature center. Just with timing on, wanting to fulfill this and see this through with certain funds that expire, this made the most sense now with the low risk because the soccer fields and the baseball diamonds are thriving with AYSO. I don't foresee, nothing's guaranteed, but I don't foresee that changing by the time our zoning amendments are done this time next year.
Anything else from the commissioners?
I have one more question,
Go ahead.
Mayor Mark. Is this something that has been done in other municipalities, or are we kind of?
I did do some research into if they've rezoned specifically for childcare, and I haven't found it in their rec districts, but it's kind of a collaboration between ODC and those municipalities, or it's businesses too, that have done this on their own properties. So there's not a mold to fit this, if I put it that way.
New territory.
I can add on one thing, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner, this process is a bit unique in how we're doing that, but with the city looking to revamp its zoning ordinances, this could be temporary in nature based on the recommendations from that, whereas Sarah spoke, we can zone the nature center specifically for that. We are dealing with a timing crunch here as it relates to ARPA funding and allowing a potential partner to be able to move along in their process. So traditionally this is not the order in which we would go about things. It is legal, it's I would say it's not necessarily normal, and it has happened before, but once we look at finish the master plan, look at future land use maps, we will be able to put more of a permanent looking out for the future of the community. Does that make sense?
So there are hard stops here that we need to get in front of.
Well, given the newness of this concept, I'd be very comfortable if it was tied to that specific applicant, because we're going to learn some things along the way, and I don't want to be in a situation where we can't
I don't think we
retreat.
can tie it to an applicant. It's tied to the property.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Yeah.
And then with the new zoning district, you're saying it might give us more control?
When
Yes.
we rezone, yeah.
Okay, understood.
Yep, so the reason it was done this way too is this allows it to be done just by a zoning ordinance amendment, whereas if we had gone through that process and created a district for the nature center, it would have had to go through the master plan process and the zoning ordinance amendment process, with that timing being there's a 62-day public comment period just for the master plan process where it sits. So it was really done to be the most efficient, and then kind of right on the coattails of doing this, we can at the same time look and do a district specifically for the nature center.
So the new master plan that will be coming out next year will address this.
Yep.
So it's cleaner.
If that stays a focus, I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. And we've had this discussion with the consultant on the master plan. He's aware of this.
Yep.
If the master planning process wasn't where it's at right now, we may be going about this a different way. It's just with the timing and the way the stars aligned here, looking at ARPA funding, the Nature Center, as well as master planning. No problem recommending this, but your concerns, all things equal in a different situation, we may not even be at this point. We may go about it a different way.
Thank you.
Good questions.
Anything else for Sarah from the commissioners? Hearing none, there's a motion on the floor. Would call for the roll, please?
Commissioner Grote,
Yes.
Branson,
Yes.
Volheis,
Yes.
DeVray,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Northrup.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Sarah. Moving on to appointments to boards and commission. Is there a motion to approve these mayor's appointments?
I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's appointments to boards and commissions as listed.
Support.
It's been moved and supported, and I will ask for Mary or Dave to speak to the process and the new board members.
I'd be happy to, unless, Mary, you're eager to stand and do. Oh, wonderful. So Mary and I had the privilege to conduct interviews for open vacancies on the library board. Most of you probably have had the chance up here at least to know a little bit about what that library board does, but for those of you in the audience, it's an advisory group and it provides recommendations on policies to the city in our operation of our local library. Those are set for 3-year terms. We had posted for quite some time some positions and conducted with those that we felt were highly qualified. We conducted 3 interviews from that standpoint. And we've landed on 2 candidates, one of which is here, Lori. If you'd like to introduce yourself to the board, you can. You can come and say hi and why you like libraries. You're sitting here in the
Don't mean
heat.
to put you on the spot.
But I learned from the mayor it's okay to do that.
Hi, my name is Lori Vargo. I've lived here for about 9 years. Even though I don't currently work in a library, I had worked in libraries for about 25 years. I got my master's degree in library science, and it's always kind of been part of my life ever since my first job at 16 years old. That's kind of the short and
That's
quick
awesome.
of it.
Yeah, it was clear from Lori she has a passion for libraries and for ours in particular, and being able to use the skill set acquired from that different work, we're excited about that. And then also Chris Vandenberg, who had previously served on the Library Advisory Board before at least my 10-year involvement in the city. She has an attorney background and was really helpful with the city, helping us negotiate First Amendment issues when we first introduced computers and the internet to the city of Hudsonville. So some of you may have fonder memories of that than I can recall. But we felt that that's an important value to value the First Amendment and its connection to our library as well. So those were the 2 that we are recommending to the mayor. And you can take it from here, Mr. Mayor, unless, Mary, you'd like to add anything else.
Well, Lori, just thank you. These boards are very, very important for the community at large, and it says a lot about you and your dedication to the community. So on behalf of the commission and the citizens of Hudsonville, we're very appreciative when people like you step up and want to make a difference in the community, because it really does. It's kind of transparent to a lot of people, but we get it and we do appreciate it. And thank you for going through the process and being here tonight on a kind of an uncomfortably warm night. So thank you very much. I can just call for a voice. All those in favor of approving these library advisory board members, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Lori. And thank you, Kristen. Before I ask for the city manager's report, Tobin, do you have anything to add?
Nothing.
Dave? Jeremy? Larry? Dan? Jack?
Yes.
Go for it.
I would just like to say it's pretty exciting compared to a couple of years ago when we were sitting here looking at our investments and looking at really, really small numbers. And I understand that part of the increase that we have now and the interest that we earned is based on something that's well out of our control. It's interest rates. But I'd also like to give compliments to Andrew for his shepherding, for his diligence, and for making sure that the money in the city of Hudsonville that is invested to the best of its ability. So, thank you, Andrew.
You have been a good steward, Andrew. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything?
No, sir.
Clerk?
If you did not get your paper copy in the mail, I have one. Otherwise, it is available on the line or on our website, which is working.
Did everybody get a copy of the newsletter?
Yep.
For whatever reason, I didn't get one at home. Maybe it disappeared out of the mailbox. I don't know.
I also have one other thing. If you are so inclined to help with election and early voting, the county is looking for some receiving board members for early voting.
I think I'll sit this one out.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense for you. So,
August 6th,
yes.
and we expect 65% of the people have voted prior to August 6th.
We already have 20% return.
We
for
already have a
absentee
20% return,
voters.
so very well. City manager, you got anything?
Yep, I'll make this short and sweet, all things considered. Great news, Prospect Flats Brownfield plan was approved by Ottawa County today. It's a big hurdle. Couple easements, the closing of the process of the property, commercial rehab application, and a reimbursement approval from the local from the Ottawa County Brownfield is left. But we are in good shape. The timeline is good. It has been a great experience working with this developer.
There'll be press releases on those enhancements, right?
Oh yeah, yep. We'll be sure to get that out. And I've been talking to both developers. We want the hard hats. We want the groundbreaking. So we'll make sure we add those on the list. Update on Terra Station. I sent out a letter of support last week to the MEDC. As of today, we have not heard anything back from MEDC or MISTA. I will check in probably early next week with Team Veneklausen to see if we're hearing any updates and potentially give MEDC and MISTA a call myself. I think in this case, no news is good news, but I know we're antsy for those incentives to hit. Be on the lookout for a series of press releases regarding our upcoming projects. Last week, Friday, there was a press release the city put out with regards to the Buttermilk Creek Park bathrooms and parking lot. Work will formally start next week. There's some mobilization of equipment that's going on this week, and we're looking at completion by the end of October, start of November. The timeline has increased a little bit, so looking forward to that addition at Buttermilk Creek. The left turn new lane at New Holland, we'll have a press release going out tomorrow. The start date will be July 15th with an end date of August 15th. We'll have some information in the press release, but it's looking like no left turns north or southbound on 32nd during the project. We'll give folks a head up on that with some potential detour routes as well. This week at 9 on Thursday, we have the Berry Street and Allen realignment. The City Commission has awarded that project. We've had great discussions with the contractor, but our official pre-construction meeting will be this Thursday at 9. We'll have more details forthcoming and a press release. The estimated project schedule, work will begin at the end of July with substantial completion realized by December 1st. But we will have some information coming out that. Press releases will be available on the city's Facebook and Instagram pages, as well as potentially LinkedIn, and we'll have links on our website as well. Two more here. Hudsonville Balloon Days was well attended. Unique events like this are great for residents, bring folks in from all over the Midwest. Talking to the vice chair of the Fair Board, I have not had this confirmed, but talking to him, it looks like Hudsonville Balloon Days has agreed to hold the event in Hudsonville at the fairgrounds for the next 3 years. So great event. I attended it. If you didn't have a chance this year, pencil it down next year. It's neat. We had a bid opening with regards to the AMI meters on June 27th. The city received 5 qualifying for proposals, and in a welcome change of pace, the initial numbers were well in line with the budget and maybe a little bit under. These are unique proposals in that each entity is different. The equipment, the technology is different, while the concept's the same. Bob and I will be reviewing those. He did a great job on the RFP, working with our engineer as well as the city attorney on the request for proposals. I believe Bob and I will be in a position to recommend that on August 13th, and this will be an excited, technologically advanced improvements to our water system. So looking forward to that. And then finally, just to put this on your radar, we'll discuss this at your July 23rd special meeting, but I'll work with Mayor Northrup to secure a date for a strategic plan and a capital improvements project workshop that we had talked about during our budgeting workshop. I'll get with the mayor on some particular terms, some of my thoughts, utilize some of the best practices from the city in the past, but we'll look to get that date going. So be prepared to have that discussion at your special meeting on July 23rd. And if it's okay with you guys, I'll request that Jill post that for 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Does that work for the workshop?
2 weeks from tonight.
Yep, and it may be it'll be a special meeting. I believe we'll have a one action item that's going to be timely that we need to get that through. So I'll say that. I can field any questions, comments at this time.
Mr. Manager, one follow-up comment to the left turn lane. The end date you said was August 12?
15.
15?
Yep.
And I just looked, and the school start date is August 21st, I believe. So that should align well.
Yes, in the when we launched the program, requested bids, we put a firm end date on that to avoid the first week of school congestion and first week of school congestion.
Are we expecting any issues with the Berry Street realignment in school schedules?
I'm not expecting any issues. We are working on a final permanent easement with an affected property owner. We've had 3 formal meetings, several emails. I believe we're where we're at, need to be in with terms. The city attorney's gotten a legal description of the easement. This one, a little bit more detail was needed, more conversations. But right now, we're a go. We're looking forward to starting the project.
Thank you.
For that project, are they going to get that paved before the snow flies, hopefully?
Well, per the agreement, they need to, and around November 1, asphalt concrete needs to be pretty much poured. But they have a while for substantial completion. Will be by December 1. It's by the end of the year for substantial completion. But in terms of asphalt and concrete work, with the plant shutting down, that November 1 area looks like it'll be the date that they try to stick to.
Any questions for the city manager? The only comment I have is I'd like to thank the staff for another fine June of concerts and looking forward to the month of July's happenings on Harvey. The social districting will be open, correct? So if you have a chance, take your family downtown and walk around. Last chance for anybody to speak up. Hearing none, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.